Today we'll be working on lesson 8.3 long division, and basically it's going to be dividing polynomials by binomials. So I'm going to be doing number 3, 4, 5, and 6 off of your notes. Let's go ahead and start with number 3. Now remember that the top of the fraction is going to be our dividend, and it's going to be going inside of my long division. So I'm going to put x to the power 3 minus 5x to the power 2 plus 4x minus 2 over here. And the divisor, x minus 2, is going to be written on this side of my long division shape. Now, as you can see, first of all, you have to check, is my powers or are my powers in order? So I have a power 3, power 2, power 1, and no x, so power 0. So yes, they are in order. All the powers are there, so I'm good. I can start dividing. So remember, the top goes inside, and this goes on the outside. Now, to be able to divide, you have to start with the first term and the first term. Not the whole thing, you just think of the first term in the dividend and the first term in the divisor. And you ask yourself, x times what would give me x to the power 3? And the answer is x to the power 2. So x times what would give me x to the power 3? And once you know what it is, you put it up there. And it's x to the power 2. Now, once you decide what the first part of your quotient is, you go ahead and multiply. X times x to the power 2 is x to the power 3. Negative 2 times x squared is negative 2x squared, and you write it down. You draw a line, and remember, every time we have long division, you have to actually subtract these two, the answer and the top and this. You have to subtract them. So don't forget to distribute the negative after you multiply. A lot of students forget to do that. So don't forget to do that. Distribute the negative. How do you do that? So basically, the negative x squared will become a negative, and the negative 2x squared will become a positive. So basically what you're doing is that you are distributing the negative and you're changing the sign to both of these. So this becomes negative and this becomes positive. Because you do that because you want x to the power 3 and minus x to the power 3 to cancel out. And then now negative 5x to the power 2 plus 2x to the power 2. So as you can see, they have the same power. So yes, I can combine them. So negative 5 plus 2 is a negative 3. X to the power 2, and then you move everything down and you do the same steps again. And you ask yourself now, x to the power what would give me negative 3x squared? So if I'm going to write that down on the side, x to the power times what would give me negative 3x squared? If I multiply by negative 3x, I will get negative 3x squared. So I'm going to put negative 3x squared on the top. So x times negative 3x squared, that's going to give me, it should be negative 3x, just negative 3x. So this is negative 3x only. So x times negative 3x is going to be negative 3x squared. And then negative 2 times negative 3x, that's going to be a plus 6x. You see how they're lining up? The x's with the x's and the squares with the squares? This is what you want to do. Now draw a line, and remember you have to subtract, so change the sign. The negative becomes positive and the positive becomes a negative. So don't forget to distribute the negative for every single step after you multiply. Because negative 3x squared and plus 3x squared, they will cancel out. Now plus 4 minus 6, that's a negative 2x, and then you move the negative 2 down. And you go ahead and do the same steps again. So x times what would give me negative 2x? Go ahead and write it down if it makes you feel more comfortable. And if I multiply by negative 2, I get negative 2x. So I put negative 2 over there. Now x times negative 2 is a negative 2x. And negative 2 times negative 2, that's a positive 4. Now don't forget to change the sign and distribute the negative. When you do that, then you change the sign for each one of them. Now negative 2x plus 2x will cancel out. Negative 2 minus 4 is a negative 6. Now as you can see, this has no x anymore. So basically the power is 0. This one is the power of 1. So if you end up with just a number, a remainder, then you stop dividing. So that is going to be your remainder. And that's going to be your quotient. So let's go ahead and write down the final answer. If you divide them, your answer is going to be the quotient, x squared minus 3x minus 2, plus the remainder over the divisor. Because since I have a remainder, I have to remember to put it as a fraction form. So the answer of the division up there is going to be this. And remember, the quotient plus the remainder, which is -6. So you can just put, if you want, you can just put a negative. So the answer could be x squared minus 3x minus 2 minus, because plus and a minus, or plus and a negative will give you a negative, 6 over x minus 2. So both of these are correct. And this is how you do long division. This is how you write your answer if you have a remainder. Now pause the video and try example 4 on your own. Now I do hope that you tried. Let's go ahead and write down our long division. So the dividend is going to go on the inside and the divisor is going to go on the outside. Now before I write my dividend, I want to make sure that the powers are correct in order. So that's a 4, that's a 3, that's a 2, that's the 1, and there's no variable, so that's a 0. So the powers are all there in descending order, so I'm good. Let's go ahead and write down the dividend. And like we did before, you look at the first part and the first part and you ask yourself, x times what would give me 2x to the 4th? If I multiply it by 2x to the 3rd, I will get 2x to the 4th. So x times 2x to the 3rd, that's a 2x to the 4th. Now -3 times 2 would give me -6x to the 3rd. Do you see how the powers are lining up? That's because I checked that all the powers are in order, in descending order. Now once you multiply, don't forget to change the sign. So that's going to be a negative and that's going to be a positive. So 2x to the 4th minus 2x to the 4th, that's a 0. -6x to the 3rd plus 6x to the 3rd, that's a 0. So that's a 0x to the 3rd. Okay? You don't have to write x to the 3rd, but it's just a 0. Now let's move everything down. And now you go ahead and do the steps again. X times what would give me x to the 2nd? And the answer is x. So x times x is x to the 2nd. -3 times x is -3x. See how everything is lining up? And for some reason, everything is canceling out too. So don't forget to distribute the negative. So this becomes a negative and this becomes a positive. So to do that, don't forget to change the sign. This is how you distribute the negative. So x squared minus x squared cancels out. -3x plus 3x cancels out. And I move down the -3. I'm left with a number. So that's going to be my remainder. So if I have a remainder, how do I write my answer? It's going to be the quotient. So the answer is going to be 2x to the 3rd plus x plus the remainder, which is -3. So I'm going to put -3 over the divisor, which is x minus 3. So this is how you write your answer if you have a remainder. So we just did examples 3 and 4. Let's move on to examples 5 and 6. In example 5, I think this didn't copy all the way, so I'm going to cancel this one out, and I'm going to rewrite it. It didn't copy all the way, like your sheet. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to, just like we did before, I'm going to put down my long division sign. I'm going to write the divisor on the outside, and the dividend, I need to make sure that the powers are in order. There's nothing missing. It should be in descending order. So 4, 3, this is a 1, there's a 2 missing, and then there's the constant with the power of a 0. So if there's a power missing, you have to remember, so don't forget something called a placeholder. Placeholder, it means if there's a power missing, you have to write like 0x to the power 2. So let me show you what to do. Don't forget placeholders. So x to the power 4th, that's a 4 power. negative x to the power 3, negative 2x to the power 3. Now an x squared is missing, so I put in 0x to the power 2. That's the one missing. And then I continue with negative 31x, which is the power 1. Then the constant, which is the power 0 since there is no x. So don't forget placeholders. So we're going to call this, let me put it in a box so you would remember. This is going to be my placeholder. If there's a power missing, you have to write them down in descending order. Okay? If there's a power missing, you have to write a 0 for it. Now you do the same steps. X times what would give me x to the 4th? So that's x to the 3rd. So x times x to the 3rd is x to the 4th. Negative 4 times x to the 3rd, that's negative 4x to the 3rd. Don't forget to distribute the negative by changing the signs. So this becomes a negative and this becomes a positive. X to the 4th minus x to the 4th, that cancels out. See how the powers are lining up? There you go. So negative 2 plus 4, that's a plus 2, x to the 3rd. And I copy everything down. So plus 0 x to the 2nd, minus 31x, and minus 4. Now you do the same steps again. X times what would give me 2x to the 3rd? It's going to be 2x to the 2nd. So x times 2x to the 2nd, that's 2x to the 3rd. And then negative 4 times 2x to the 2nd, that's a negative 8 to the 2nd. Now see how the powers are lining up? And that's because I created a placeholder for the missing power. If I forgot to do that, then I might be messing up somewhere over here as I'm subtracting. So don't forget placeholders for the missing powers. Now after you divide it, don't forget to change the signs. So 2x to the 3rd minus 2x to the 3rd, that cancels out. 0 plus 8, that would be an 8. Don't forget x to the 2nd. And you move everything down. Now, you do the same steps again. X times what would give me 8x to the 2nd? That's going to be an 8x. So, x times 8x, that's an 8x squared. Negative 4 times 8, that's a negative 32x. Now don't forget to change the signs. So that becomes a negative and then becomes a positive. Now, of course, these are going to cancel out if I did my multiplication correctly and I distributed the sign. Now, negative 31 and plus 32, that's going to be a plus 1x minus 4. So what can I multiply x by to give me a 1x for x? That's just a 1, because x times 1 is x, it's itself. So x times 1, that's going to be giving me x. Negative 4 times 1, that's going to give me negative 4. Don't forget to change the sign, so that's going to become negative, that's going to become positive. So x minus x cancels out. Negative 4 plus 4, that cancels out. So as you can see, I do not have a remainder. So my remainder is 0. Now what does that mean when I divide and I get a divider or a remainder of a 0? It means that this is a factor. So how do I write my answer? I write my answer as such. I can write it as x to the power 4 minus 2x to the power 3 minus 31x minus 4 is actually equal to the divisor, which is x minus 4, times the quotient, which is in this case x to the power 3 plus 2x to the power 2 plus 8x plus 1. So basically it's the divisor times the quotient. So as you can see, what I did to my dividend is that I factored it. So we call these factors. And this is the main reason we do long division, is to be able to factor things to the power 4. Okay, so these are called factors. As you can see, there is no remainder, so I don't need to put remainder over divisor like the previous problems because the remainder is 0. So again, if I divide and I get a remainder of 0, it means this is actually a factor. Or you can think about it another way, is that the 4 is a root. We're going to talk about this more later on. Now would be a good time for you to pause the video and try number 6 on your own. Now remember that the divisor goes on the outside. and your dividend goes on the inside. Now let's check that the powers are in order, descending order. That's a power 3, power 2, constant, so power 0. There is a missing power 1. I have to put a placeholder for that. Don't forget the placeholders, because you want your powers to line up when you multiply. So I put 9x to the power 3 plus 15x to the power 2. I have a power 1 missing, so 0x to the power 1, or you can just write 0x minus 2, which is the constant. And yes, you have to put a 0 for the constant if it's missing. Now, like we did before, 3x times what would give me 9x to the power 3? So I think it's a 3x to the power 2, because 3 times 3 is a 9, and x times x to the power 2 is x to the power 3. So that's going to be 9x to the power 3. And negative 1 times 3x to the power 3, that's going to be a negative 3x to the power 2. Did I say 3? I meant 2. So negative 1 times 3x squared, that's going to be negative 3x squared. Don't forget to distribute the negative, so change the sign. This should cancel out. 15 plus 3 is an 18. And copy down everything else. Now, 3x times what would give me 18? So 3 times 6, that's going to give me 18. And then x times what? What x should I have there to have x to the power 2? So that's an x. So 3x times 6x, that's 18x to the power 2. And negative 1 times 6x, that's a negative 6x. Draw a line. Don't forget to distribute the negative, so change the signs. See how the powers are lining up? See, this is power 1 and this is power 1 because I had a placeholder. So these should cancel out. 0x plus 6x, that's a 6x minus 2. Now 3x times what would give me 6x? That's a 2. So 3x times 2, that's a 6x. And negative 1 times 2, that's going to be a negative 2. Don't forget to distribute the sign by changing the signs. These are canceling out, so remainder is a 0 in this case again. So that means that 3x minus 1 is actually a factor. To write this, you can write it as such. 9x to the power 3 plus 15x to the power 2 minus 2 is equal to 3x minus 1, the divisor, times the quotient, which is 3x to the power 2, plus 6x plus 2. So as you can see, these are factors. Don't forget that. Okay? So that's everything for dividing with binomials.